evening, and welcome to the regularly scheduled City Council meeting of October 16th. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let us pray. Dear God, thank you for the gift of life and the opportunity to serve the people of our city. Help us to act with character and conviction. Help us to listen with understanding and goodwill. Help us to speak with charity and restraint. Give us a spirit of service. Remind us that we are stewards of your authority. Guide us to be the leaders your people need. Help us see the humanity and dignity of those who disagree with us, and to treat all persons, no matter how weak or poor, with the reverence your creation deserves. And finally, Father, renew us with the strength of your presence and the joy of helping to build a prosperous community. Please keep our first responders safe and in your thoughts. We ask this as your sons and daughters, confident in your goodness and love. Amen.
Amen.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Woolley,
Here.
Councilmember Aris,
Here.
Councilmember Milan,
Here.
Councilmember Moffitt, Councilmember Albrecht.
Here.
The first item on the agenda is the consideration of approving the following consent agenda. The consent agenda includes the minutes of the regularly City Council meeting that was held on October 2nd and the minutes of a special City Council Public Town Hall meeting that was held on October 10th.
Mayor, I move the consent agenda be approved as listed.
Support.
Were there any questions, comments, corrections? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Aris,
Yes.
Councilmember Milan,
Yes.
Councilmember Moffitt,
Yes.
Councilmember Albrecht,
Yes.
Mayor Woolley.
Yes. The next item on the agenda is a very sad presentation for me. It's a presentation of a certificate to recognize our museum curator, Melody Nichols, for her years of service. Melody, will you please come up? I wanted to read the certificate of recognition down there. Can you hear me?
Nope.
There you go.
Testing.
There you go. Yep.
The certificate of recognition is for you, Melody. And it says, Melody is not a native of Clawson, but it would be hard to discern that she is not one when she begins to speak passionately about Clawson's history. Listeners cannot help but realize that she has spent untold hours learning volumes about the city and its people during the 11 years she's served as its curator. And Melody became the go-to person to obtain information about anything and everything about long-ago Clawson events and past residents because of her incredible knowledge of Clawson's history. And she used her extensive knowledge to tap into the inventory of the museum and bring together items to present a different perspective on the history of this community in new and dynamic displays and programs, and has preserved an amazing amount of information on a special museum computer program. She put her stamp on the downtown area of Clawson, also as she worked with the Downtown Development Association Design Committee and helped decide how historical markers should be depicted and placed in the downtown area. She's been active in the Michigan Preservation Network and part of the Keeping History Alive facade restorations, as well as being a well-respected speaker imparting her knowledge in other cities. She's led tours around the city to show off distinguished craftsman homes built in the early 20th century using kits ordered from mostly Sears and Roebuck and Montgomery Ward, while writing books about them and showcasing the city streets. I, Deborah Woolley, by virtue of the authority vested in me as the mayor of the city of Clawson and speaking on behalf of the entire city, do hereby express our sincerest appreciation and gratitude to Melody for her 11-year-long labor of love as a curator of the city's historical museum. And I just on a personal note, when I became mayor, part of the job is you have to do a speech and presentations. And all of Melody's collection was my inspiration to write the speeches that I've had to do so far. So I'm going to just so miss you being here because you just are a wealth of knowledge and you've taken care of all of our history very safely. And I'm just really, really going to miss you. So good luck to you and your exciting future endeavors. But thanks again for all of your work. I really appreciate it. So exciting for Melody, but sad for us. The next item on the agenda is a presentation and update by their Parks and Rec Department. Ms. Leanhouse.
Thank you very much. As you know, I've been here before talking about play equipment that we wanted to put at our city park. And I am very happy to say that we have some groups here that have donated money towards that purchase. So we started out looking at some replacement play equipment for the Clawson City Park. The advisory board, part of our goal is to slowly implement getting new play equipment that's more accessible to all levels of ability in children and those who use it. And so we looked at a unit called the 10 Spin that's going to have some special strapping in one of the seats so that a child could be transferred from a wheelchair into it and enjoy the ride. And we're going to replace a unit in the tot lot that was broken and removed this spring, and that's going to be called a buddy rocker. There's nothing really particularly specifically handicap accessible about that one, but you can fit 8 kids on it and they'll have a good time at the park. The equipment cost with delivery and installation is just over $11,000, which is a lot of money. And I had applied for a grant and had also sent requests to the Clawson Rotary and to the Clawson Lions Club asking specifically for just $500 if they could donate that towards it, which both groups graciously did. However, the grant didn't come through. And then someone suggested to me that I contact the Masonic Lodge. And so I did, and I just sent them a letter saying, could they contribute? And they were very generous and have contributed $5,000 to the project. So I want them all to come up and be recognized for what they do. And we are so fortunate to have the support of these fine organizations in our community. They do so much to enhance the lives of the people who live here through their involvement in all of our events. You'll see them at many of our events, Fall Festival, Paws and Claws. They raise money for scholarships for our high school students and much, much more. So I would like to invite the representatives from those groups up here. The Masonic Lodge, if you guys want to come up, I'll introduce you to our council. As many of you know, the Masonic Lodge was in Clawson for many years. They've relocated their actual physical buildings in Troy now, but they still care very deeply about our community. This is Mr. Hanson Lee, and we have Damien Garcia.
Damon Gracia.
Thank you. Tom Creech and Quill Pedway. Okay. They want to present the check to us. I don't know. Mayor, would you like to come down and get it?
Again, we probably need a picture so that they get.
Yes. So if you would like to come down, that would be great.
Sure.
Please, or is it Mike?
I can. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I don't know how we officially do this, but I'll let you present that to the mayor.
The Trelome Masonic Lodge would like to present to the city of Clawson a check for $5,000 for the purchase of the playground equipment at the city park. So,
Thank
There
you
you
so
go.
much for this very generous.
I want you to move up so you guys can all get in the picture. And then we have representatives here from the Rotary Club, Kevin and Carol Pelkey. We don't have any big official like checks or anything, but can we still do pictures?
Yes.
As many of you know, the Rotary has done a lot for our community. The park that's at the corner of Elmwood and Main Street, they have graciously fixed up and plant flowers and have a lot of nice things in there, made it very beautiful entrance into our city there. So we want to thank you guys very much for your donation as well, and for all the things you do throughout the year for the city. We do appreciate it. Yeah. So get a picture taken. Go take pictures. We'll do a, can we do a picture? Howie, you must be are you here for Lions Club? Howie, are you here for Lions Club?
Greg could do it.
Greg, can you come up? And Clive told me somebody would be here, but it's you.
Both of you.
You didn't tell none of us.
You're my backup. So again, the Clawson Lion Club were generous enough to also make a donation towards the play equipment. And as you well know, they do stuff all through the year for our community. They build ramps for our seniors who need them at their houses.
Kind of got out of that business.
Okay, they got out of that business. I take it back.
We need vans for ourselves now.
Call the SHARP program, maybe we can work something out. So I want to recognize them as well. There's no gift too big or too small. It all just goes to bring about the best for our community, and that's what it's all about. So thank you very much to the Lions Club. Go do it.
The next item on the agenda is a presentation by the DDA regarding their new public art projects in the city. We have our DDA Director, Joan Horton.
Hello. We're here to talk a little bit about the public art. I hope you've seen the silhouettes that are at the corners of 14 and Main. It's been a multi-year project and something that was pretty much entirely done in-house. We had the concept. We hired a model maker who did foam core representations for us so we could help sell it. Then we went out and with the assistance of the chamber and in-kind donations for engineering and other costs, we have finally been able to put the art in place. And we hope that this is just the beginning of many, many more. And I'm going to introduce Valerie Glander, who is on our design committee, who was one of the major players in getting this project going.
Hi.
Welcome.
So I think we just want to talk a little bit about how we see the future of this public art program. I mean, we've got the 5 figures that are out there, the woman with the little dog, a man holding a child, kind of an adolescent or preteen girl with a backpack, and a woman shopping. And what we've got on the screen, if you scroll down into some of the other pages, are some other choices, kind of putting together like a sponsorship program where we could see this be public art that kind of grows through the city to reflect more of, kind of the streetscape livelihood that we like to see in downtown Clawson. So we've got, everything from every age to every ability. and are definitely open for ideas from the public as this grows, or even local businesses. We estimate that sponsorship costs might start somewhere in the $1,500, $1,200 to $1,500 range to put a single silhouette up, which could be, you know, a new business coming in looking for a way to add that public amenity on their site plan review, or to, you know, any local families that want to see this project continue throughout downtown. So we're pretty excited about where this can take us. It's, like Joan said, we've received a lot of engineering time, the water jetting time, I think, and in-kind donations. So this was a very cost-effective way to bring some streetscape life to downtown Clawson. So we're excited about that. And then, do you want to talk about the next thing, or just? So we want to talk about what's coming up next. Is there another slide?
This one?
Yeah. So we are kind of ready to launch a new alleyway, kind of gateway, just a real simple kind of same, using those same relationships with engineers and steel cut shops, where we can kind of bring some life to this sort of dead space in the alley. I think we've already been working with DPW over the last year or so about paving that alley on the east side of Main, south of 14 Mile, if everybody's familiar. But also kind of grow that downtown Clawson brand, and really invite people to connect between that parking behind and the streetscape. So this project should be like maybe half funded through a grant through Main Street, Oakland County, and I think that's sponsored by Genesis Credit Union, but that's got to be used this year, and then we'll have more in-kind donations on that as well. So we're excited about things to come.
Thank you for all your hard work on these items.
Yeah. It's fun to see them come to life. Like now is like Joan said, it's been a few years of all the back work.
Yeah, this is, that alley has been so underutilized. It doesn't look like a place that you want to walk through. So eventually the arch will be the first thing, and then eventually we'd like to see some public art, something that goes through that alley, so that when you're walking through there from the street to the parking lot, it just looks a lot friendlier. Even landscaping, we don't know, we're open to ideas, and anyone in the public who would like to comment or has ideas, we're always welcome to have people join our committee and lend new ideas. So thank you.
Is there a plan for lighting for that area as well?
There's not. There are so many. What doesn't show on here are all the poles all through that
Yeah.
alley. So we're kind of, best we can do right now is focus your eye down here on the archway and kind of ignore all of the stuff that goes through there. So until some of that's removed, I'm not sure what all of it is. And Dennis Weiss, who is redoing the building for the distillery there, seems to think that some of those are not electric, but telecommunications, cable related, and no longer necessary. So we'll see. But we would like to see it cleaned up a bit. So,
Good start.
but some lighting would be wonderful. Yeah, there was Holly just got a grant, the same grant that we received through Genesis, through the Main Street Oakland County Main Street program, and they put the Edison lights
That's what I was
between a
picturing.
couple buildings.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right now, I don't want your eye to go up that way yet, because until we get rid of some of the other clutter that's in there. So, but it's first step. We'll be excited to see at least baby steps. We just keep incrementally just moving forward. So, thank you.
Well, while you're here at the microphone, would you like to talk a little bit about the upcoming event that's going to be down in the downtown on Main Street?
Yes. Saturday, October 27th. Trick or Treasure from noon till 3 o'clock for the kids to trick or treat downtown. We have a little over 50 participants so far, which is a pretty good number. Again, this year it's an allergy-friendly event, so all the kids can trick or treat together. If you've got children that are allergic and others that aren't. It seems so unfair that they can't all go out together and have the same experience. So it's a lot of fun. And then at night, the over 21 kids come out and celebrate in costume for a pub crawl that includes scavenger hunt, puzzles, trivia game, and silly things that they have to do, silly tasks that they have to perform. All of that together in one big booklet that they get of things to do, and they turn that in at the end of the night, and we score them, and then there are prizes. So last year we had over 120, and we have about 85 pre-registered at this point. So it's a fun night. So you'll see people doing silly stuff down the street, and then they have to take pictures or videos and send them to us during the night so that we can mark off what they've accomplished, and then they turn in their books with all the puzzles, trivia, and scavenger things that they have found and where they found them. So if anybody would like to volunteer that night to help score the books at 10:30, give me a call, because we do like to get them all scored so that people can get their prizes and continue on with their night, and we can go home. So, yeah, we're always open to a few more volunteers.
How do people register and what's the cost?
$20 pre-registered, and they can do that online, downtownclawson.com. At the top of the home page is a tab called Happenings, and the event is listed there. And it is $25 the night of the event to walk in. We kind of like to know ahead of time how many we're going to have, because we've got to make up all of the booklets. So that's it.
Thank you.
Get your costumes on. Come on down.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much. The next item on the agenda is consideration of establishing a public hearing to solicit comments on the 2019 Program Year Community Development Block Grant application.
Your Honor, I move a public hearing to solicit comments on the 2019 Program Year Community Development Block Grant application be established for Wednesday, November 7th, 2018.
Support?
Mark, is there any way that, I know that getting information in regard to these grants is difficult, but as part of that evening discussion, can we find out if there's a new area and maybe some additional thoughts on what we could use that money for?
Yeah, I believe Karen expects to have the low to moderate income area map before then. So if we do, we can take a look. Areas of the park have gone in and out of eligibility, so we hope that's on there, and there could be other areas of the city we can look at. But she did say from the workshop today that the money next year probably won't be available until December, so it keeps moving farther and farther back in the year. But the low to mod area map helps us figure out possible projects that anyone from the public can recommend as well, and we'll take a look at. So
It'd be nice if we could continue moving forward and try to see if we could use some of that money towards additional play structures and things that are for all abilities, as Kathy said. Do I have we had support, correct?
Yes.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Milan?
Yes.
Councilmember Moffett?
Yes.
Councilmember Albrecht?
yes.
Mayor Woolley?
Yes,
Councilmember Aris?
Yes.
and the motion carries. The next item on the agenda is discussion on the current animal ordinance and chickens in the city. So I'm going to open the conversation. Said that we had a town hall meeting last Wednesday, which was well attended. We got to hear a lot from the citizens of the community, and I'd like to just say I took away how it can really make us an attractive community. But again, making sure that we would do it in a responsible way. So I just kind of wanted to open the floor to what people's impressions were after that meeting, or any other comments that they'd like to make regarding that.
I guess I just agree with you. I mean, we saw an overwhelming support for it, and we also saw openness to setting up some rules and regulations. So I think that just understanding, what we can do in that regard and making sure that whatever rules and regulations we put in place are enforceable, I think that's the task at hand.
Anyone else want to comment?
No, I think we put together some, we do have 4 or 5 different cities. We have their ordinances, and we just got them, in fact. So I'd like to go over them and put together something where everybody's going to be happy with it. And I guess the biggest thing I've got is how many chickens everybody wants to have. Do you want 3 or do you want 4? Or do you want 6?
I think in that regard, too, I think I'd like to see some sort of, something put in place to allow the people who currently have more than whatever amount we allot for them to keep those for a period of time. And we can put give them an exemption for, 6 or 10 years, whatever you said the life of a chicken was. But after that, they need to be within the parameters. But, I think that because it went on for so long and people were able to gather their chickens, have more chickens. I mean, so I think that we need to, live up to our reputation of the little city with a big heart and do something to make an accommodation so that those people who have more than whatever limit we set can continue to keep them until they, through attrition, go away.
One part of the conversation I wanted to open the door, the ordinance currently discusses all barnyard animals, and I'd like us to see us address all of the non-traditional animals at the same time. So we aren't 6 months from now talking about pygmy goats, pot-bellied pigs, and a lot of the other animals that are coming into play, so that it's something that we are thorough on doing this and not just addressing the issue with chickens in town. So that would be my...
I'd like to reiterate my concerns from last week, and they are, of course, at the town hall meeting, there were a lot of people who are pro-chicken that came. Of course, there were a few that were not pro-chicken who also came. All of them were not treated with the utmost of respect. I have a concern that we're giving people a really small percentage the go, and it's not like I'm against anyone having what they want, but you have to consider the neighbors who are around you, and if we were to enact something such as this, I think we should have a buy-off of neighbors, especially given that clearly people are in violation at this point, whether they were told they weren't or not. It's clearly in violation of what's on our books. I know that we received a bunch of information today. I glanced through it. I read a few of them and only glanced through a couple of them. Looked to me like it was all pro. I also went online and looked at what other neighboring communities have gone through in the past several years, and several of them have had very heated discussions such as this, involving media, such as this, involving cute little kids who really want a chicken in their backyard too, and they denounced it for varying reasons. Sizes of the lot is the #1 reason that most communities do not allow something like this to take place. And I think we really need to put a little bit more thought into it and to not just rubber stamp it just because it's an emotional issue. I don't think this goes beyond an emotional issue, because for those people who live next door to someone who's going to bring in something that is traditionally a barnyard animal and will not be seen as anything other than that, chickens have an odor. I think everybody knows that, and unless they're maintained very well, and I will say to you, you have me convinced that your chicken coop is probably the cleanest in the world, because I don't think people who have cats sound like they take care of as good as you take care of your chickens. But we can't guarantee that for everyone, and everyone that has them, I'm sure, will not treat them like a pet. They will treat them as a food source, and there are just a lot of concerns we have to consider, and I think the people who are anti-chicken deserve the same amount of respect and consideration for all of these varying factors that are involved. So I would like us to put a little more effort into why people would be opposed to it. And I know we've all received letters, those were not addressed last week either, very passionately stating people's concerns about pro and con. And I think jumping into it right now like this is just not really wise. I think we can come to a really good communication plan for everybody, but I don't think it's fair to negate the people who would not be for this at this time.
Well, we currently have the moratorium, so nothing's happening at this point in time until further notice.
But we still have to get moving on it. Like, we can't wait 90 days to make a decision. It's a process. And we started the process with open floor discussion, which was very good. We have another little process with, neighboring communities' plans, how what they are allowing and not allowing. There's a lot of options. There's the whole, you could allow the people who have them now to be grandfathered in and nobody else allows them. You can allow so many per city, 5 per city. We have, I don't know how many we have now. I'm pretty certain that if we have as many as we know about now, there's probably also some that we don't know about. And we also had people who were pretty adamant at the meeting that they are not going to comply with a restriction on a number. And I know you just addressed that. But what if we don't want to say you can have 9? How are we going to identify which 9? Are these the original 9 or are these new 9? We don't need to have chicken police. I think we have enough to do here. So I just think there are a lot of little issues that need to be addressed. And you stated we have 90 days, but we need to address all of the issues and not just the touchy-feely, fuzzy ones.
Comment from the left
Yeah, no,
side of
I
the room?
left. My mind has actually changed several times throughout the course of becoming aware of chickens. It went from, well, let's enforce the ordinance and get rid of the chickens because that's what the ordinance says, to understanding a little bit more of the history and the current temperature of our culture towards chickens. So it's been a learning experience for me. But really what I've had to come to grips with is even if I personally don't want maybe chickens in our community, do I think it's something that I want the government to tell us we can't do? And that's kind of where I'm at. And, for me right now, I think the biggest thing is how many to allow. And I'm, at this point, fine with maybe 3 or 4. I think lot size needs to be definitely a part of the conversation, distance from the lot line. And again, we had a 500 feet from the lot line restriction. It could be that by saying that it has to be a certain number of feet from the lot line that we eliminate some people from having chickens. So that's something we need to be mindful of. I'm okay with a licensing process, an annual inspection perhaps. I struggle greatly with allowing somebody who's in violation of the ordinance now to continue in that violation. I really have a hard time with that. I do want to address and make sure that we don't allow slaughter of chickens or fowls or animals in residential areas. I don't want to say that a butcher can't come to town and set up shop, but I just want to make sure we don't allow slaughter. Well, do we want to allow slaughter of animals anywhere in the city? I don't know.
I'm a vegetarian, so no. Let's not.
Sorry, I took that conversation and then, as the mayor stated, I am interested in addressing various types of animals in this ordinance. I think we need to really. I think Troy's ordinance that was sent to us does a good job of defining animals and the types of animals. I think that would be a good starting point as far as defining animals, and then from there, defining what's allowed. I brought this up at our town hall last week, and I didn't get a lot of support for it, but maybe putting some sort of cap on the total number of animals outside of some of these inside house pets. Do we want a household to have 4 chickens and 3 cats and 3 dogs? That's something that we need to, I think, grapple with because that could become a very real possibility. So, but again, where's the appropriate line? And this is the forum to talk about that, I think. I don't know if that's tonight or in 3 weeks, but this is the place to do it.
I was just going to say, the thing to keep in mind with is enforceability and where we can, take a look at that kind of stuff. Go.
Thanks. I would like maybe this staff, Mr. Kingsup, Mr. Smith, to possibly get creative and kind of melding something together. I'm looking at the most restrictive as a starting point. Some of the research that I did in talking to some of the references that were talked about, that it's important for education. Many people aren't familiar with all that needs to be done, and a lot of us have had experience with dogs. Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, there's been training. When you adopt a dog, they give you training, and I'd like to see our residents do something like that. I believe that we may actually have somebody here in town that is qualified to possibly do. We could reach out to that individual and see if we could do some sort of in-service. I know it's important from the Department of Agriculture to know all the chickens you'd have. Their concern from the Department of Agriculture is if you have the bird flu that mutates, they just want to be able to notify anybody that has a flock. So I want us to make sure that we include that type of information in our ordinance. But I'd like to see just a starting point and then go from there. I don't know what the rest of council thinks.
I concur with it. I'd like to know how the one chicken is.
Well, I had to get a therapy chicken because she was going downhill. So she lent me one of hers.
Okay, as long as you take care of it.
They're happy now. They're right now currently having little mealworms and listening to smooth jazz.
I had a hard time sleeping worried about the chicken. No, I don't think we should be big brother on this thing, and I think we get some decent rules and regulations if everybody can live with. I'd be happy with it. I'm sure you will be too.
As far as, if I could address enforceability, I mean, we have a lot of code issues on the books, and enforceability becomes a little bit of a self-policing thing, right? 8-inch high grass on a property, our code enforcement officer may not drive past that property for a while or whatever. And so some of this comes from complaints, if you will, for lack of a better term, from somebody who notices a code enforcement violation, and so that would be part of this.
I was just thinking of your pet count. I mean, I could have 6 cats and be an old cat lady, and there's no way for you to know unless I invite you into the house. And so when you start putting a limit on the number of pets like that, if they're contained in the house, I mean, there's no way for us to count your turtles or count your cats,
Right.
Kind of thing. And that's what I was referring to, that, anything outside, yeah, I can see your grass growing or whatever, but when we start trying to reach into people's houses, I have concerns with that.
So do we need a motion for that, or we'll stay?
I think you need a motion just to direct to the city clerk and the city attorney instruction to come up with a proposed, imaginative, far-reaching ordinance for the purpose of discussion and public presentation, just as a start. I mean, as you've had this discussion, I've envisioned some things. I think, like the training in advance, or some not certification, but some background evidence of knowing how to take care of the animals, what else is going to be in the house, how do you control that, and so forth. I was also thinking of another concept, and that is sort of a dispute resolution process between neighbors rather than code enforcement, to see whether that process couldn't come into play. It doesn't have that taint of criminality, and it's trying to deal with something in a unique sense that not many people in our community are aware of or are familiar with.
For this issue or for all issues, I think.
No, you got to start out on a single
So for the
area,
chicken
just to
too,
test
this
it out.
week, yeah.
But I'm a great believer in that process, and I think it can be used in many municipal areas where the concept really is something that should not be a citation or a misdemeanor, but something that's driven by the ability of the people to get together and figure it out themselves.
Okay, so do I have a motion?
Madam Mayor, I move that we instruct the administration to draft a proposed ordinance after having heard the council's desires and wishes in this direction, being as imaginative and broad sweeping as possible for public discussion or presentation to the council.
Support.
Are there any last comments that need to be made?
You want this set for, ready for the next meeting? Or is
At a
it-
future date, I know that you guys will be diligent in addressing that. Now, the question is in regard to the enforcement. Where does 90 days put us? I can't recall. And are we up
Like
against that, or can we
30.
extend it? What do we do?
No, you might be up against it in a couple of weeks. So you may want to just have administration consult when the 90 days is going to expire and give you enough advance notice to take action to extend it. Meanwhile, when Mike and I get our heads around what we contemplate as something that might be visionary for your consumption, then we'll be able to give you an idea of how long it will take to draft that ordinance.
And obviously, we want it in just kind of a draft form that this
Oh, yeah.
council as a body
yeah.
can fine tune for those that would like to
Absolutely.
make it more restrictive, or just kind of to
Absolutely.
find a compromise that, where
Right.
we're at with this.
Right.
I don't think the city clerk has much going on between now and the election.
Well, that's why I say we just want to make sure that,
Right.
because council's doing our due diligence, I want to make sure that
And-
the
and remember-
individuals that have their chickens are not concerned about the deadline and
Right.
ordinance not being done in time of their 90 days. So I just want to give them some time to not worry about it.
And also remember, Mike has to, and Victoria have to follow up on a FOIA request after the election for 2016 election records. That will take some time.
90 days is December, because it was
Right.
September,
Yeah.
so October, yeah.
Oh, so we have some time.
Yes, I thought we were good till Christmas anyway.
Are we actually really concerned about the time frame? As right now, non-compliance, clearly, nobody is going to do anything about it anyway, so why are we worried about the date? Just to point out the obvious.
Because the letters went out, said that they were going to enforce them by a certain date.
Yeah.
That's, I think, that the city represented that we were going to do something by a certain date. That's why I want to bring it up. You know, and so it's a regard to 9-4, I mean, they're all out of compliance at this moment in time. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Moffett?
Yes.
Councilmember Albrecht?
Yes.
Mayor Woolley?
Yes?
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Milan?
No.
And the motion carries. The next item on the agenda is my
Bills.
computer. Is consideration of the list of bills as presented.
Madam Mayor, I move we pay the bills.
Support.
Were there any questions on the bills? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Albrecht?
Yes.
Mayor Woolley?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Milan?
Yes.
Councilmember Moffett?
Yes.
The next item on the agenda is the city attorney's report.
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of the council, this subject I know will be tantalizing to the audience. And so let me give you some background first. In a report from the police chief, September 12, 2018, he laid a background about the fact that we have experienced in Clawson heavy equipment trucks doing engine braking or compression braking. Generally, it happens at the early morning hours, but it does happen during the day. There have been a number of residents that have called to complain about it. Contact was made with our prosecuting attorney, and the noise ordinance is not one that should be applicable to this because you need to gauge this level of noise and so forth. So the Traffic and Safety Board was presented with the issue, and they determined that perhaps there ought to be some limitations on this type of braking. It's generally the FedEx trucks, there are others, that brake when they're coming down or turning a corner, and they do make a loud noise. We searched the nation for some appropriate legislation on that and got something from Iowa. I don't think they have hills in Iowa, straight lanes, but they have an ordinance on compression braking, and the other was from North Carolina. So I drafted one for you. The Traffic and Safety Board made their decision to have you consider a request for an ordinance. The police have reported that they cannot recall issuing tickets for compression braking, despite the fact that there are complaints. Now, a person can make a complaint, but by the time the police arrive, the truck is gone, you don't have the identification of the truck, it's late at night, but they can be very disturbing if you're in a residential area or the truck is going through a residential area and does this. So I drafted the ordinance, and it is an ordinance that does provide for some enforcement. It defines the noise. We have definitions in it. We have the illegal activity defined. We require the posting of signage in the area so the drivers know that they cannot use that technique in that area, but it's not limited to that area. It can be others as well. So signage is posted. There are exemptions to emergency vehicles, and then there are penalties that come into play as well. And I didn't even define what that might be, but I put a section in. And then there's a general catch-all phrase, which we always have in ordinances of this nature, invalidity. In other words, if one section of the ordinance is determined to be unconstitutional or invalid, it doesn't impair the entire ordinance itself and the remaining provisions that are not under attack. So it's up to you for discussion and direction. And since I am not an expert on engine compression or compression braking, I will not answer any questions along those lines.
Mr. Kingsup, I don't know if you actually received a copy of this email. I'm looking at it, and it doesn't look like it was sent to you. We did receive an email from Jacobs Vehicle Systems, who owns the trademark to the term Jake Brake, and they've strongly requested that Jacobs braking or Jake brake not be used in ordinance or signage.
Oh, I can see why they would. I did not get a copy of that letter.
Yeah.
However, I will tell you, I did not use that word, because I happen to be clairvoyant, I guess, at the moment.
It's in here.
I did not use that word.
It is in the
here.
document that we
Engine
were sent.
retarding brake means a dynamic brake, Jake brake, Jake
Oh, yeah, I did
brake,
use
C
Jake brake, but dynamic.
Not
yeah.
that clairvoyant. And then in this email, it actually addresses the EPA has enacted several regulations that require lower noise emissions, and any brake installed after 2007 must adhere to this regulation. The noise from these brakes is generally no louder than the noise the truck creates when it is accelerating. So I don't know. Obviously, you having a copy of this email would be helpful in this conversation.
Yeah, I think, if they have changed the compression ratios, as you indicated in there, that raises an interesting question on how do you determine the violation of that when it occurs. I can't believe our officers are trained or have the auditory experience to determine that you've risen above the level. So I think it's important to see that. I think you have to be realistic about this. And again, where you have a police department that has not issued any tickets in these instances, that has some credibility that should be considered about this. It's not that I'm unsympathetic for the public who hear this recurrently, but it's the rule of reason and practicality on enforcement and whether you can even do it if you have an ordinance. And that's the issue as well.
So I assume that further discussion on this before you see that email and that information that we'd gotten in the past
Right.
is.
Yeah, that would be helpful, and I may, completely give you a different report.
Yes.
You got to figure too, John, that, and I'm in the trucking business, so I know what the Jake brakes are. It's very important. It is a safety thing. I mean, it does retard the motor, and it does slow the truck down, and you're not using all your air up on your air brakes. So, yeah, I'm not for having them in the neighborhoods or along 14 Mile, but I mean, I can tell when they use them on 14 Mile because they're slowing down. And some of them just like the sound of them.
Yeah, I know.
You know?
That is what I've heard.
But, yeah, but it is a safety factor. That's why they have them. That's why they have them on there. And in the mountains, they never get through the mountains without them.
Right.
Or any of the big hills without them. And so you got to figure that out too.
Well, let me look at the article, and I'll give you a report back at a later date on this.
Okay.
That's all I have.
I have another question. Mr. Kingsep, speaking of the Traffic and Safety Board, some weeks ago, we referred to you a request to maybe look at the ordinances regarding the
That's
structure.
been done. It's already been done.
Okay.
We were going to do it at another meeting.
Okay.
But it's already drafted and
Okay.
done.
All right, look forward to that. Thank you.
Mr. Kingsepp?
No, none.
Anything from anybody else to Mr. Kingsepp? Next item on the agenda is the city manager's report.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I just had a couple items. I did get some questions from council today about we do have our new code officer working now. Rami is working with Barb. We have Rami split right now. He's working on Monday and Wednesday, and Barb is working Tuesday and Thursday. And they've split their territory. Rami is working south of 14 Mile Road and east of Rochester, and then Barb is working north of 14 and west of Rochester. But Councilmember Milan asked earlier this evening, does that mean that they won't enforce outside? But they will. If there's any issues on a day they're here and it's not their territory, they'll still go and address it and work together from that regard. So they will still be working together, but they've split to kind of focus on specific areas of the city. I think last time we had two code officers, they did the same thing. So Barb was here at that time. So, and they usually find it's easier to get all the way through the city with code issues by doing that. So obviously we'll see how that works, and they will. Barb told me today that she'll go to Rami's territory and he will come to hers as well to address any imminent issues. And then I just wanted to remind the chief interviews are next Monday, the 22nd, and we should have a recommendation to you in November. That's all I had.
Thank you. City clerk's report.
Mayor and council, I do have the following items to report. Of course, it is right in the middle of election season. The absentee ballots were mailed out on October 9th, and every day since, whenever we get in requests. We have noticed that residents have been telling us that they've been getting them on different days from that first mailing, so we are going to definitely talk to the postmaster. We've had these issues in the past election where we mail them out with our mass mail, our permit mail, on Wednesday morning. Or Tuesday morning, we had some people who got them Wednesday, some people who got them Thursday, some who got them Friday, some who got them Saturday. So we don't know how that's set up. It could be that it was merely people weren't home. We don't know, but that's a constant question that we get asked by the postmaster, and we will continue to address that because they keep them here. They don't bring them up to Pontiac. It's a mass mailing, so they keep them there. We don't know why they're not being delivered the next day. So we try to tell that to residents, that we had some people that are always, even within the same household, that one person might get it one day, and why is that? So just a reminder to all registered electors, of course, that you can come in person, mail in your application, call us, go online, fax it, email it, scan it, to request an absentee ballot. The last date to request an absentee by mail is Saturday, November 3rd by 2 p.m. We will be open on Saturday, that lone Saturday, from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. So we'll be here kind of prepping for the election and also available for anyone who wants an absentee ballot, who might have found out that they're going to be out of town on Election Day. So again, we do want to reiterate that we did send out and will continue to notify the public that straight party voting is no longer an optional box a voter can check off when they vote. So that has been causing some issues and some questions and concerns. You will have to vote each individual candidate down the columns. So I have a sample ballot here. There used to be a little box up here that you could select. You know, you want all Republican, all Democrat, all Libertarian, taxpayers, Green Party, natural law, and then would cascade down. That is no longer there, so if you do want to vote that specific party, you have to fill in each person. So, or not, whatever your decision is. So, of course, you can leave offices blank, and remember there are two sides. So please flip it over, because there are 3 state proposals on the back as well as the 2 charter amendments for us. We did receive the League of Women Voters guides that everyone seems to love to look at, to kind of give some background for all the candidates. We do have them here, and I believe the library has some as well. And we did create a little, I guess, FYI notice for our charter amendments. Again, this is not showing favoritism, saying voting yes or no. It is, because we're not allowed to do that. It is just saying this is what we're trying to do. They're housekeeping items. The one in which is just to delete some obsolete language and restrictive language for other things as time has progressed and become more modern. The one is just to allow for other outlets of communication for any meetings, which is Proposal 1. And then Proposal 2 is to delete the Justice Court, which was basically is outdated, and other things have been with new things with district courts. We don't have a Justice Court anymore, and we don't elect a constable anymore. So they're just housekeeping items to bring us to clean up our charter. This is those steps, and these were both approved by the Attorney General and the Governor. So that was good. So the language is finally good, and so they're on there. So we will have that available. It's out on the website. We have it at our desk. Again, it's just informational. It's not stating to stay vote yes or no. It's just informational for everything. So the biggest thing, you can come back anytime, Monday through Thursday, and get a sample ballot. A lot of people love it because we do anticipate lines will be a little bit longer. So you can kind of go in there and review it, and get your handy-dandy League of Women Voters Guide, and you can kind of prep before. We have seen an uptick in absentee ballots, so it's hard to gauge what the turnout will be, but we never know. So remember to remind your college kids especially, or just anyone in general that you know, that if they are unable to vote in person, they can request an absentee ballot. Of course, give us a call anytime. The main phone line, 435-4500, extension 116 or 118. We will happily answer any questions you have about the straight party issues, any type of voting, any questions that you have. And I actually will be trying to do a PSA probably next week to have out there, just a quick little 30-second thing about the new equipment, and just explain so voters can have that. We'll put it out on social media and the website just to explain things a little bit better. Trying to reach out to as many people as we can, because we know this is a huge change, because we've had straight party ticket voting for 100 years or something, so it's going to be a big change. And to kind of go along with that, I'll be holding the public accuracy test of the voting equipment tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Anyone is welcome. No one ever shows up, but we're here. That's part of the process, part of the statute. We have to test all the ballots, the sample ballots that we push through. And then just wanted to reiterate that Tuesday, October 30th is the special city council meeting where the prospective planning services firms, organizations will be presenting. All are welcome, of course, starting at 6:30 here at City Hall. Like I stated, the city clerk's office will be open on Saturday, November 3rd. And if that doesn't work for people as well, we will be available on Monday. You can also pick up an absentee ballot, but you have to vote it in person here at City Hall until 4 p.m. So I won't see any of you until then, so that's why there are all these dates. Then, of course, Election Day is Tuesday, November 6th. Polls are open 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Anyone who is in line by 8 p.m. will be afforded the opportunity to vote. So please get there. We always see, higher turnout, of course, before work, lunchtime, and so you kind of have these lulls. So we just approved all the election inspectors, and we have some wonderful volunteers who are going to be helping out everyone at the polls, so we're thankful for that. And because of that, Reminder that the city council meeting was moved to Wednesday as well to allow us to utilize this space for the absentee counting board. So that is all I have.
Can you reiterate the rules for first-time voters?
Yes, if you are a first-time voter and you registered by mail, you have to vote in person the first time. So that's what happens a lot. We have these college drives that happen, and they just do a mail-in. We get it, but we've never seen the person. And until they change the law where any clerk can do that, they have to vote in person that first time. So that's why we always tell people, hey, we're open that Saturday. Like if your child can come home from school for that Saturday, we're here. They can get the ballot right then if they want, vote it in person, and just be done, and then go back to school Monday and not have to worry about coming back Tuesday.
Perfect.
That's all.
Anything else? No, thank you. Mr. Smith? Moving on to unfinished business. And new business. Busy time of year again. Let me remind everybody, we have the Trick or Treasure that Joan had mentioned from noon to 3 on October 27th. The pumpkin crawl that evening from 6 to 7 is registration time, I believe is the time. And I was going to ask Ms. Moffett, who's our new Clawson Youth Assistant Representative, to speak about the Trick or Treat Trail.
It's going to be on October 28th from 6 to 7:30, and the way it works is they set up businesses and organizations, pass out candy along the trail at the park. I spoke with the people from the Youth Assistance Council today, and they have over 50 businesses and organizations that's going to be passing out candy. So I hear there's long lines, and it's a great activity. There's cider and donuts, and it's a good time for everybody.
Thank you. I want to make a note that the prayer breakfast that was scheduled for October 30th has been canceled by the organizer. And we have the euchre tournaments coming up. Where's my little euchre tournament? The euchre party is November 2nd. It's a Friday. It's at the Clawson Knights of Columbus. $20 admission. That includes food and prizes. You don't have to have a partner. And all the funds go to the Clawson Athletics Group, the Athletic Booster Club. You must be 21 to play, but you can call Lisa Sarvello at 248-821-5109 or email her at lisasarvello@gmail.com to get your tickets. It's a great time.
Good time.
And I just want to mention that Christmas in Clawson is coming on November 10th. We're getting into Christmas season, and the White Elephant Sale is at that same time. And I noticed in the library they have a great class that's going to be available on November 12th, teaching everybody how to do online shopping at the library, and it's from 6:30 to 7:30, so just in time. And so give the library a call to register, as well as their Pause to Read sign up. You can read a story to one of the special care animals from 4 to 5:30 on November 14th. So that's all I have so far. Anyone else? Okay. Guess we open public discussion. Public discussion is now open. Please, say your name and your address, please.
Hey, good evening. Name's Matt Cook, 406 Fisher Court. Just going to read you something real quick, see what your thoughts are on it, and I'll get out of here. So I've got a document right here. It says, the most widely accepted definition of sustainability is meeting today's needs without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Urban development should be guided by a sustainable planning and management vision that promotes interconnected green space, a multimodal transportation system, a mixed-use development. The path towards sustainability is rooted in 3 pillars: economic development, social progress, and environmental responsibility. This is directly out of the city's current master plan. So not to bore everybody with the whole sustainability section within the master plan, but on page 72 of the master plan. It indicates that future actions for the city are to prepare a sustainability plan. To maximize efforts, the city should prepare and adopt a sustainability plan that will be framed by policies and the overall vision of the community. The plan shall be implemented through specific goals, objectives, and actions. A sustainability committee or similar advisory body could be created that includes city officials, business and community leaders, and city residents. So I don't know exactly when this was adopted, this master plan, but I think it's pretty recent, within the past year or so. I don't know if there's been any progress on that front to create the sustainability committee or not, but wanted to also read one more thing that may make it a little more interesting. This is a news release from Monday, so from the 15th, so yesterday. The National Fish and Wildlife Foundation today announced the launch of the Southeast Michigan Resilience Fund, a competitive grant program that will provide $1.2 million in its first year to benefit Southeast Michigan communities and habitats. Work supported by the fund will improve resilience in the face of intensifying environmental stressors related to development, climate, invasive species, non-point source pollution, and other factors. The article goes on to say, today, as of yesterday, the fund partners announced their first requests for proposals, or RFPs, and applications for competitive funding are currently being accepted. Work supported by the fund will take place in the 7-county region of Southeast Michigan, including St. Clair, Macomb, Oakland, Wayne, Washtenaw, Livingston, and Monroe counties. Grants will be awarded in 2 categories: expanding green stormwater infrastructure and enhancing public space, and also improving habitat quality, connectivity, and accessibility. This is the section that I think is probably most applicable to Clawson. By investing in green stormwater infrastructure solutions, the fund will reduce flooding and other intensifying threats associated with major storm events, while also creating safe, dynamic, and enjoyable public green spaces that improve habitat values for wildlife and quality of life for residents. So anyways, the reason I wanted to bring it to everybody's attention is that we've got neighboring communities. Royal Oak, I know Clawson is not Royal Oak, but for a number of reasons. But they have made quite a bit of progress within a couple of years with their sustainability plan. They have a committee, they have a plan in place, and they're implementing quite a few different things at parks along Main Street and doing some things to improve. This is not just green stuff, so it has additional value, I believe, for the community. And I would just like to encourage the council to consider starting the process to get a committee started, and maybe we can come up with our own plan here shortly. It might work to coincide with selecting a new master or city planner as well. So may be a good opportunity to ask those questions during the interview process.
Where was the news release from, please?
I actually saw this on Crane's Detroit Business.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. One question. I don't know if anybody has an answer to it. Does anybody know what's being developed finally at the empty lot on right north of or town behind the movie theater?
Apartments, condos.
300 apartments.
Really? Okay. Wow.
And I can tell you that I was at some of Troy functions last year, and the joke of the council in Troy was the fact that they built it there because of Clawson's great downtown.
Well, okay.
So we got kudos in a
that way.
interesting way.
But no property taxes.
I know. They're going to spend money here in town.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Good. Okay. Thank you.
thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, Maria Tyra, 708 Drian. I just wanted to thank you guys all for taking a good, thorough look at the chicken issue and giving us some hope going forward. Hopefully, we can all come to some kind of agreement where we are getting our chickens and you are getting, permits and rules and things in place that work for everybody. And I just wanted to thank you again for taking a good look at it and not dismissing us out of hand. Really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Well, then I guess public's discussion is now closed.
Madam Mayor, I move the meeting go into closed session to discuss attorney-client privileged information regarding pre-meeting personnel evaluation criteria information in accordance with MCL 15.268H.
Support?
Roll call, please.
Mayor Woolley?
Yes.
Councilmember Ayers?
Yes.
Councilmember Milan?
Yes.
Councilmember Moffett?
Yes.
Councilmember Albrecht?
Yes.
What that means is council's going to go into closed session and discuss this issue, and then we will come back here and officially end the meeting. So thank you very much for your time.